in the autumn of 1621. The Pilgrims, reflecting on a year fraught with hardship and loss, but now buoyed by a successful harvest, desired to express their relief and celebrate their survival. The feast was a manifestation of gratitude, a common practice in European cultures to rejoice over the bounty of the harvest. The celebration was also an acknowledgement of the Wampanoag's role in the Pilgrims' survival. Without the tribe's assistance, the harvest might not have been as fruitful. The feast was a gesture of goodwill, a diplomatic extension of friendship, and a way to reinforce the alliance between the two groups. Preparation for the feast was a communal effort. The Pilgrims hunted fowl while the Wampanoag contributed 5 deer. The tables were laden with the results of a successful harvest: corn, harvested in the form taught by the Wampanoag, beans, squash, and pumpkins. Seafood such as clams and mussels complemented the spread along with fruits and nuts. The feast, which lasted for 3 days, was more than just a meal. It was a festival of games, dancing, singing, and, as some accounts suggest, even target shooting with guns and bows, activities that entertained and also demonstrated military prowess. Pilgrims and Wampanoag alike engaged in the festivities. They shared stories, demonstrated dances, and sang songs in a display of cultural exchange. The smoking of tobacco was likely a common sight, as it was a customary practice among the Native Americans and had been adopted by some of the settlers. This shared feast was a rare moment of harmony and celebration between two very different cultures. It was an occasion that transcended the mere act of eating, encompassing gratitude, alliance, and a hope for a peaceful coexistence. As the 3-day feast drew to a close, there was a palpable sense of harmony and optimism among the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag. The shared experience of the feast had fostered a deeper understanding and a stronger bond between the two groups. Historical record suggests that about 50 Pilgrims and 90 Wampanoag people participated in this landmark event. The Wampanoag guests, who had outnumbered the Pilgrims 2-1, returned to their villages with stories of the feast and the hospitality they had received. This event solidified a peaceful coexistence that would last for several years. The Pilgrims, buoyed by the success of the harvest and the feast, returned to their work with renewed vigor. The alliance with the Wampanoag provided them with the measure of security and the confidence to continue building their community. In the weeks and months that followed, the mutual respect and cooperation that had been established during the feast continued to manifest in various ways. The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag traded knowledge and goods, ensuring that both communities would benefit from the alliance. The aftermath of the feast was not just a return to routine. It was a period marked by a hopeful outlook. The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag had demonstrated that disparate cultures could come together in a spirit of mutual respect and gratitude. The significant number of attendees at the feast, particularly the strong presence of the Wampanoag, underscored the importance of this newfound fellowship. In the beginning, the relationship between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans was marked by mutual benefit and peaceful coexistence. The first Thanksgiving feast was a genuine celebration of collaboration and survival against the odds. This iconic event, often romanticized in history, did indeed reflect a moment of unity. The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag tribe shared knowledge, resources, and moments of joy, laying the foundations for what seemed to be a promising alliance. However, as the seasons changed, so did the dynamics between the two groups. The initial period of harmony gave way to a more complex and strained relationship as the colony expanded and the demand for land and resources grew. The narrative of a harmonious beginning was overshadowed by the subsequent conflicts and struggles. The story of the first Thanksgiving remained a cherished legend, But the later years brought a series of broken treaties, land disputes, and skirmishes that would mar the history of both peoples. Recognizing the full spectrum of the Pilgrim-Native relationship is essential. It honors the initial period of peace and acknowledges the ensuing discord, providing a more complete and nuanced understanding of this chapter in history. The fragile peace that had been maintained between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans was largely due to the diplomatic efforts of Chief Massasoit, the Sachem of the Wampanoag tribe. His death marked a significant turning point in the relations between the two peoples. Massasoit had been a stabilizing force, a leader who saw the value in alliance with the newcomers. His passing left a void that would soon be filled by his son, Metacom, also known as King Philip by the English. Metacom's views differed sharply from those of his father. Where Massasoit had navigated the complexities of this new coexistence with caution and foresight, Metacom faced the growing encroachments of the English with increasing hostility. The death of Massasoit coincided with a period of rapid colonial expansion and a series of misunderstandings and broken promises. Tensions escalated, leading to what would be known as King Philip's War, a devastating conflict that would engulf the region. Under Metacom's leadership, the Wampanoag and their allies launched a series of attacks on English settlements. The war was brutal and bloody, marking a stark contrast to the hopeful beginnings of the Pilgrim-Wampanoag alliance. The war, although eventually won by the English, left deep scars on both sides. It resulted in the near destruction of several native tribes and a lasting distrust between the colonists and the Native Americans. The death of Massasoit and the rise of Metacom had irrevocably changed the course of New England's history. The situation was complex, with alliances shifting and varying degrees of engagement among different English communities. Some, like the Pilgrims, who had a history of relative peace with the Wampanoag, were reluctant warriors, while others were more aggressive in their expansion and defense. Ultimately, King Philip's War was a regional conflict that reflected the growing pains of a rapidly changing New England. It was a war that the Pilgrims, despite their initial intentions of peaceful cohabitation, could not avoid. The war reshaped the landscape of New England, marking the end of an era of tentative peace and the beginning of a new, more contentious chapter in colonial Native relations. King Philip's War, often remembered for its brutality, was not a conflict of clear-cut sides or moral high ground. It was a maelstrom of violence that saw atrocities committed by and against every group involved. The war's savagery was not limited to the battles between English settlers and native tribes. There were instances of native tribes, such as the Mohegan and Pequot, who sided with the English against the Wampanoag, Narragansett, and their allies. These internal native conflicts were driven by long-standing rivalries and strategic alliances. And similarly, not all English settlers were united. Disputes over land, power, and policy led to internal strife within and between the colonies. Some settlers, like the Quakers, were outspoken critics of the war and the treatment of native peoples, leading to tensions with their more militant neighbors. The war was marked by acts of extreme violence from individuals on all sides. Benjamin Church, an English colonist, led brutal raids against native villages. On the other side, native leaders like Metacom, also known as King Philip, faced dissent within their ranks, with some members committing acts of violence that went beyond his directives. This was a war where the lines between civilized and savage were blurred. The infamous Mystic Massacre saw English settlers and their native allies burn a Pequot village, leading to the death of hundreds. Conversely, the Great Swamp Fight involved a surprise attack by colonial forces on a fortified Narragansett village, resulting in significant native casualties. History often seeks heroes and villains, but in King Philip's War, such distinctions are elusive. It was a war that saw native fighting native, settler against settler, and alliances that crossed those lines. It was a war where the concept of innocent was complicated, with suffering and cruelty on all sides. This chapter of history serves as a stark reminder that the past is not black and white, but a complex tapestry woven with the threads of human ambition, fear, and the struggle for survival. The brutalities and complexities of King Philip's War have, over time, cast a long shadow over the earlier story of cooperation and thanksgiving between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag. These later stories of conflict and suffering have sometimes been conflated with the earlier peaceful celebration, leading to a distorted view of the original Thanksgiving. It is crucial to recognize that the Thanksgiving story, with its spirit of unity and shared bounty, stands separate and distinct from the conflicts that would unfold over the following decades. The first Thanksgiving was a genuine moment of peace and friendship between two very different cultures, a brief interlude of harmony before the eventual turmoil. The conflation of the Thanksgiving story with the later devastation of King Philip's War serves as a reminder of the importance of separating historical events to preserve their individual truths. While the war reflects the tragic complexities of colonial expansion and its impact on native peoples, the Thanksgiving feast stands as a separate testament to the possibility of peace and mutual respect. It is a distinction that is essential for an accurate understanding of the past and its many narratives. The celebration of Thanksgiving today is a tapestry of traditions influenced by centuries of customs and various interpretations. Let's explore the key milestones that have shaped this holiday into what we know now. The first official Thanksgiving proclamation was made in 1623 by Governor William Bradford of Plymouth Colony, marking the end of a drought that had threatened the year's harvest. This day of thanks was not associated with a feast, but was a religious observance involving prayer and reflection. Fast forward to 1789, when President George Washington proclaimed the first nationwide Thanksgiving celebration in America, marking November 26th as a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to express gratitude for the conclusion of the country's War of Independence and the successful ratification of the U.S. Constitution. Thanksgiving celebrations varied from state to state until Sarah Josepha Hale, the author of Mary Had a Little Lamb, campaigned for a national holiday. After 17 years of advocacy, her efforts bore fruit when President Abraham Lincoln declared a national day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent father in 1863, to be celebrated on the last Thursday in November. While Thanksgiving has its roots in American history, similar celebrations occur around the world. Canada, for example, celebrates its own Thanksgiving on the second Monday in October, a tradition that dates back to the 1578 voyage of Martin Frobisher and his search for the Northwest Passage. The date of Thanksgiving in the United States was not fixed until 1941, when Congress passed a law declaring the fourth Thursday in November as the National Day of Thanksgiving, a response to Franklin D. Roosevelt's attempt to extend the Christmas shopping season by moving Thanksgiving earlier. Today, Thanksgiving is recognized not just in North America, but also in various forms around the world. Countries like Liberia, which was founded by freed American slaves, and territories like Norfolk Island in the Pacific, influenced by American whaling ships, also observe the holiday. As we draw the curtains on the story of Thanksgiving, we reflect on a holiday that has transcended time, geography, and culture. From the early days at the Plymouth Colony to the modern tables around the world, Thanksgiving remains a symbol of communal gratitude and shared humanity. The journey of Thanksgiving is a tapestry woven with the threads of history, tradition, and the universal human experience. It's a narrative that has evolved, adapting to the needs and understandings of each generation. Today, Thanksgiving invites us to gather, to share in the bounty of the earth, and to remember the ties that bind us. It's a time to celebrate our commonalities, to bridge our differences, and to acknowledge the complexities of our shared history. The true spirit of Thanksgiving lies not in the opulence of the feast, but in the simplicity of gratitude. It's a moment to honor the past, to appreciate the present, and to nurture hope for the future. As we embrace the warmth of family and friends, let us carry the essence of Thanksgiving with us all year round. For in gratitude, we find a common language that speaks across the expanse of time and space, connecting us all in a circle of thankfulness.